Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good people. Yeah, you know what it is. Hard worker, scrappy, unfiltered, and sometimes unhinged football content. Hard to explain, but you know it when you see it. Doing it daily our way. I don't know what you're talking about right now. Redraft and Dynasty Fantasy Football, we got you covered. You know their defense is ranked like 31st in the NFL. NFL draft prospects and rookies. Now you know you in the right place for that.
Absolutely.
All right, then stop saying it. Then we're done. And prop bets with my man JRich.
Count that money, man.
Now wipe the crust out of your eyes, get you a cup of coffee. It's time to wake your ass up with Ray G. You honestly are making absolutely no sense and you sound silly as hell. GMGP. Good morning, good morning, good morning. How do you hit me with the womp womp?
Come
on,
the
Jay.
Wrong button.
Come on,
it's still
Jay.
Early, Ray. It's still
Come
early.
on, man. Get this shit together. It is Monday, July the 3rd, 2023. Y'all decided to wake y'all asses up with Ray G. And y'all know I appreciate y'all being in the building. Shout out to my man Fizzle Dollars, who's on the intro song. Shout out to you, Fizzle. Appreciate everything you do for the DD community, baby. You hooking us up, hook up 4D. Thank you for that. David from across the pond, what's happening, baby? Jimbo in the building. Rico Stone, Jay Peters, John, Rhonda Commander, Dynasty Barry, Colton Porter. We got a lot of people here this morning. Jamal Stevens said, good morning, from. What's up, baby? What's going down with you? Chris Spellman in the building, Alex C. I'm excited. I'm happy. This is going to be a good show. This is going to be a fun show. I tweeted it out yesterday that there is like nothing going on in the NFL world today. I think we've got 10 Sundays until NFL football. We've got a couple of weeks until training camp pops off. So JRich and I wanted to have some fun today on this show and just engage with y'all, man. It feels like only doing this once a week. I don't get to talk with y'all much anymore, but we'll be back to our regular 3 days a week very, very soon. But we're starting this thing off with questions and things that I'm seeing on Twitter, which is god awful now, Jay. I don't know if you've you're verified on Twitter. I'm not verified, and the experience on Twitter from old Elon Musk has been less than enjoyable. Jay, but I saw a question, so I want to intro you, bring you in, ask you how you are first and foremost. Jay, how you doing this morning, baby?
I'm good, man. I'm sorry for your little sad trombone there to start the show.
Hit me with the trombone.
I was trying to hit the people with the link to the data for today, and I without a source, the roadcaster, man, needs like a visual cue to let me know what's going on because I'm just looking at colors, trying to figure out which one it is and messed it up. But we good. We back. I'm good, though, man. I'm good. This show is fun. People don't know, and I'll just tell you, like, we basically did a whole show via text yesterday. Like, you came up with the idea. We started talking about it, scenarios. Like, this show is going to be crazy because there are so many angles, so many things to look at. And for people who do want to follow along, and we will get to the show, obviously, but I did pull all the DLF ADP from 2014. So you can see where the current players are in the NFL, where they are ranked, and how they ranked over the years. And that was kind of how I started the conversation of, well, in 5 more years, how will it ultimately look? But that's a little tease for what we'll be doing later. But I am good, Ray. How are you doing, man? How was your weekend?
Man, it was long again. Another baseball tournament, dude. I feel like we got one of these every other week.
Yeah.
So weekend was eaten up by baseball, a good hour and a half away with little man. But it was good, man. I'm blessed to be here. I'm glad to do the show with you. I'm glad we got people here hanging out with us this morning. Appreciate everybody being in the building. And yes, this show that we're going to do today, I'm going to just let y'all know right now, it is an impossible task. We are going to piss off fan bases. But I'll tell you this, Jay, as we were talking through this exercise, and, 5 years from now is not that far away. Like, it's not a long time from now. But then you start looking at 5 years ago where the ADP was and where players were ranked and where quarterbacks, and we picked the easiest position. We literally were like, oh yeah, this would be easy. This would be simple to figure out who the top 10 quarterbacks would be in 2028. And then we started doing this and looking back at how many 33-year-olds are currently inside the top 10 at quarterbacks. And you're just like, man, this is a hell of a lot harder than we thought. And there's a lot of different angles and strategy, but you see so many people talking about they play Dynasty Fantasy Football, Jay, in particular in 3-4 year windows, 5-year windows, and I'm doing this, and I'm like, there's no freaking way. Like, it's just it's an impossible task, Jay. Like, it's damn near to the point where Dynasty is almost like glorified redraft. It's a year-to-year sort of game. Like, you can kind of make your bets and gambles of players that will sustain, but this was a very difficult exercise, and it won't get any easier if we decide to do running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, Jay. But we've been starting off these shows with a little question, right? I like to little icebreaker to get you going, get you warmed up, so you could so we could be sharp today. And we've got a lot of things that we want to announce in the show, Jay. But I saw a tweet yesterday talking about 4 college football running backs, and if all 4 of these running backs were in their prime, who would be your RB1? So let me just put this image on the screen right here. Here it is right here. This was tweeted out by Sam Block at Blockspot. But they say all 4 in their prime, who's your RB1? And in this 4-picture collage, you got Ezekiel Elliott at Ohio State, Reggie Bush at USC, all day Adrian Peterson at Oklahoma, and then you got the man Saquon freaking Barkley at Penn State right there on the screen. So you got these 4 running backs, Jay, in their prime, and look how many people viewed this. I mean, there's 3.5 million views. I mean, there's a lot of discussion.
A lot of college football fans out there, man.
A lot of college football fans, and these were very good players in the NFL, Jay. But I'll start with you in their prime, and all 4 of these players were freaking awesome, man. We're gonna rattle off some stats. Which one of these 4 are you taking as your RB1 in their prime in college?
Well, I think that answer is a little bit more difficult for me, but I think I'm going to start actually, Ray, with talking about these players, just how they look, because you look at Saquon Barkley, he looks the same, AP looks the same, and then you see Zeke. Zeke's aged a little bit, Ray. He's looking a little old, like looks really young at OSU. But when you talk about these 4 running backs, the dominant run that Zeke had at Ohio State, AP, you talk about his freshman season, how great he was. I was probably like 6 or 7 years old when that happened. That's just
I was just saying, you weren't it, yeah.
Saquon Barkley, of course, we all watched plenty of Saquon Barkley. That was, when you and I were really making our rise in the dynasty space. But it's got to be Reggie Bush for me, because even though he doesn't necessarily have the power that you view, a lot of people, when you look at these dominant running backs, you got to kind of have that power, that longevity. Reggie Bush didn't really have that so much, but when you talk about a guy that, in my opinion, was basically untouchable in the open field, that is Reggie Bush. And you could make the case for Saquon Barkley, but Reggie Bush is just a different animal, and maybe it's the speed was a little bit different, and he was just on another level than everybody else, but his ability in the passing game and in the rushing game, because people got to forget, he wasn't just a pass catcher in college, he was a phenomenal running back all around at USC, and so for me, it would definitely be Reggie Bush. He's probably the most dynamic player in college ever seen, outside of my favorite college athlete, Percy Harvin.
Yeah, Percy Harvin was dope. And this is kind of tough, man, because I just want to start with Zeke. And I don't think people realize the 2-year stretch that he had. He went back-to-back collegiate seasons, over 1,800 yards, almost 7 yards a carry, 18 touchdowns as a junior, as a sophomore, 23 touchdowns as a junior, and he had over 25 receptions in both of those seasons. He was incredible, man. Adrian Peterson, his final season at Oklahoma, I believe, without even looking, he had 339 carries, 1925. I think he had 1,925 yards and 15 touchdowns. And I remember, I think he had like 5.7 yards a carry that year, and he did not catch the ball. I think he had like 5 receptions that freshman season at Oklahoma. But then you get to Reggie Bush, man, and what Reggie Bush was able to do. And I'm fortunate that I got to see him play live his final season at USC. But he had 200 carries, so 139 fewer rush attempts than Adrian Peterson. Yet he had 1,740 yards, 16 touchdowns. He averaged 9 yards a carry. Then he also had 478 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns through the air. And then he had 672 return yards and another touchdown in one season. I mean, what he was able to do on minimal touches is insane. He had 200 carries. That's it. And almost 2,000 yards. Like, he was well ahead of his prime, in my opinion, well ahead of his time, in my opinion, the way that they utilized the running back in space. Freshman season, Adrian Peterson was different. I mean, he should have won the Heisman Trophy that year. They ended up playing USC in the national championship that year, and USC stomped them right in the backside. But all 4 of these running backs were awesome. I just thought it was an interesting question. Reggie was a bad boy. I see you, Marlon. Yeah, Robert. Yeah, he split the backfield with Lindell White, and Lindell White was freaking awesome. Lindell White was incredible. Yeah. So, man, this was an interesting one. They put out some other ones with wide receivers and stuff like that, but we won't do that Marvin today.
Harrison
But he actually was on the list. He was actually on the list with
he's gonna be
Larry Fitzgerald. He was actually on the list. But Jay, we got to get to some news and notes and what's going on around the NFL. So go ahead and hit us with what's happening in the news world today.
All right, Ray. So we do have some news out of Kansas City. It's not Rashee Rice. It's not Sky Moore. It's actually Richie James. Richie James is liking his opportunity in Kansas City. And you know what, Ray? I probably would too if Patrick Mahomes was my quarterback. But I mean, you look at what Giants last year, and I think you see kind of how he could fit into this offense. He could be a guy that kind of surprises in fantasy. And so I kind of like that he's liking his role. But again, so many mouths to feed. In theory, we don't know who the guy's going to be. It could be Richie James, could be Tony, could be Sky Moore, could be any one of these receivers behind Travis Kelce. But it's interesting to see that he's liking his opportunity. That means he's probably going to get on the field. What does he do with it? We're going to see. And then the Panthers' Terrace Marshall feels clear heading into year 3. We know he's been banged up, dealing with some injuries. Yeah, not sure what that means entirely, but clear-headed, clear mind, namaste. People got to feel great heading into the year. It's just time of my life season.
Got it.
Best shape
Next
of my life.
piece of news.
That's probably
Next
what it
piece
is.
of news. Keep it coming.
Mike Evans wants to break Jerry Rice's record because the NFL decided last season they were going to extend the NFL schedule so they could have a 17th game, just so Mike Evans could get to 1,000 yards every single season. I'm not sure if you knew that, Ray. That was actually one of the reasons why they changed that rule. He's trying to pass Jerry Rice. He's already at 10, I believe, tied with Randy Moss, so he needs one more to tie Jerry Rice and then another season to get to 12 for the most all-time in a row. There's still no home for Dalvin Cook. I don't know when we're going to get resolution on this. Seems like it's just never going to happen. But maybe one day someone in the AFC East will sign Dalvin Cook, or maybe somebody else. We don't know. And Ray, one of your favorite quarterbacks in the league, he actually has a little announcement. Brock Purdy decided to get engaged. And Ray, I know that you're not a financial advisor, but if it was me and I was trying to marry somebody, I probably wouldn't marry them without knowing that I have some financial security ahead of me. We know that Brock Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant. And I know that we've talked about that. There could be an extension in Brock Purdy's future. And maybe, just maybe, this is an early indication that he will be a 49er for a very long time. And then you also have in the notes here, Brock is looking thick.
Yeah, Brock.
I mean, I don't know if you're looking at his legs, but
Brock
was looking thick.
Brock
I didn't see any other pictures.
Big.
I just see him on his knees and it's covered a little bit.
He's standing up in one of these.
Man,
he's standing up in one of these. Brock looks like he put on a little weight, man. Brock looks like he's getting ready to carry that
off-season program, treating him well, baby.
Brock, let me find this picture of Purdy, man. Hold on, here it is right here. Look at Purdy. Hold on. Let me save this image. Let me show you what Brock is looking.
Okay.
Listen, I'm just telling you. It looks like he's been in the weight room. That UCL. But look at old Purdy right there. Look at those quads. Look at that. Let me zoom in.
How does his UCL impact his leg game, though?
Look at that. I'm just telling you, man. I'm just giving you the facts here.
He does look good, though.
Purdy's looking good. Purdy's looking good. All right, Jay. All right. Yeah, no news. So you're talking about Richie James and Terrace Marshall and Mike Evans. There's absolutely no news in the NFL right now. And
no Hopkins news either.
No Hopkins
nothing
news.
Going on.
He's still waiting for the Titans.
He's waiting for Tennessee or the Patriots to pay him.
Well, there was a piece of news out of Tennessee, some pretty scary, serious stuff with Hassan Haskins and his girlfriend, or I don't know if it's his wife or his girl. I think it's his girlfriend. A domestic dispute between those two. And I'll just say, does not look good for Mr. Hassan Haskins. I went ahead and he was already a fringe. I don't know if he was released or not. I dropped him from every roster that I had, though. If I had Hassan Haskins, I dropped him. I mean, he doesn't even warrant. He's not the type of guy that would even warrant second opportunity if, in fact, these allegations are true. But some pretty serious stuff coming out of Tennessee, which only means Tajay Spears gets a little bump up, right? Tajay Spears, is probably going to be in some sort of, I don't know, battle with Hassan Haskins for that RB2 spot behind Derrick Henry, but maybe this makes his path to relevancy a little more clear right now with everything that's going on, Jay. But yes, no news, and we do have a little bit of
gambling suspensions was the other one.
Oh yeah, gambling suspensions.
Gambling suspensions.
What did my man do?
Amok.
What did my man do? $1,000 over under on the Colts, his own team's rushing yards? Like, come on, dude. That's just. At that point,
he knew JT wasn't getting the ball that week.
He knew it.
He
saw it all week in practice, right? JT's not going to carry the ball. It's going to be a lot of Zach Moss and Deion Jackson.
Imagine that, Ray, just walking in the locker room. Hey, JT, how's your ankle doing, bro?
I'm not playing.
Good? You going to play this week? Bro, I don't know. I might just,
hammer the under.
Ceremony start.
Hammer the under. Hammer the freaking under,
I'm saying
Jay.
I'm saying it, but I'm not saying it. You know what I'm saying?
Let's get into our underdogs, risers, and fallers for the week, baby.
From the biggest and brightest stars to the last round pick, we have you covered for everything on Underdog Fantasy. Let's get into it and let's get that money, baby.
UD, Jay, risers, fallers, who we got this week?
All right, so a lot of the same from last week. Not a whole lot of change. This is just the cycle we're in. It's just an absolute dead period. But we are seeing Romeo Doubs continues to rise, which is a little bit surprising because, there was early reports of Jaden Reed running with the ones, and obviously Christian Watson is the one. How many medals are they defeating Green Bay? Apparently 3, with Romeo Doubs continuing to rise. The guy I'm probably most intrigued by is Greg Dulcich because there's still a lot of questions around this Broncos offense. And a lot of people believe what we saw from Dulcich last year could translate into another big season this year. And I think another sneaky part about this is the utilization of the tight end from Sean Payton. So it is encouraging to see Dulcich rising and not really a surprise. You see P. Ryan for the same reasons, potentially going to get a solid role in that Broncos backfield. You see Trevor Lawrence and Tua Tagovailoa rising. Ray, we're obviously going to get into both those quarterbacks later today. You were talking about how you're not so sold on old Trevor Lawrence, but we can get into that. And obviously Tua, I've been pumping him up, it seems like, for weeks now, because every week I find another reason to talk about Tua, and it's just because he's been so great. He's been such a great quarterback. It's literally just, is he going to be healthy? We have Rashee Rice falling down boards, and part of that is Tony going up. You have Richie James, as we mentioned, going up. All these guys going up. Not a whole lot of positive reports about Rashee Rice. Michael Gallup kind of falling a little bit. I think he's just a little bit too high in ADP. Not really surprising there. Juju, the injury, and playing in New England doesn't help. And then 2 Colts both falling. It must be the Anthony Richardson drug that people were taking for months. It's finally wearing off, and reality is setting in, realizing that maybe he won't be so great for those wide receivers in fantasy. But we'll see what happens. Pittman obviously is a bit of a polarizing guy because we love the talent, but his ADOT and his yards per reception were awful last year. And how does he look with JRich this year? That's kind of a big question. He could still be a value, but how does he ultimately end up? We're going to find out. But all these guys, it's a dead period, not a whole lot of going on. News isn't really impacting anything. It's literally just, a few thought pieces, a few things that are out getting published, but a lot of it is driven by other things. But Ray, we do have a new contest for Underdog, and I think all of us are really excited by it with the weekly winners contest. $15 entry, $3.5 million in prizes, $20K to first every single week. So for people who aren't familiar with this contest or haven't seen it yet, one, go and check it out. But basically what it is you're playing daily fantasy every single week for 17 weeks. So you have your team that you draft, and then you basically play a DFS slate every single week, and you get payouts every single week. And so that's what makes it really interesting. You're not just playing for the playoffs or to get to the playoffs and the final.
Yeah.
You're playing for every single slate, every single week. And so I forget who tweeted it out, but someone talked about you could enter this contest 150 times, which combines to about 2,200 lineups.
2,500.
2,500 lineups for the entire season, which is really, really cool. All the different combinations. And a lot of people are talking about now, well, what are the weeks that teams have the most bye weeks? And what are the weeks teams have the least bye weeks? And how do you correlate? And you can literally say, I'm going into this draft and I want to stack Bengals and Ravens because you're going to get 2 of those games every year and they're probably going to be good high scoring games. And you can approach it from every different lens. And Ray, you've actually done a couple of these drafts. What are some of the things that you've noticed in these weekly winners contests?
QB's going high, man. QBs are going very, very high. People want the quarterbacks. People are reaching for the quarterbacks. I just think it's a dope contest because, like you said, every week is a clean slate. So there's just, you don't have to focus in on just week 17. And that's what BBM 4 is. That's what Mania 4 is. You want your players to spike in championship time, right? You got to get there. You got to advance. But ultimately, you're playing for week 17. This is a cool contest. It's $15, so $10 cheaper than BBM 4. And again, this is your team for every single week. So you can have, in theory, you can have one team that wins you $40,000, one team that wins you $60,000, right? You could have 2 teams that win it. So this is a really unique concept. I really like it. It'll be fun for us to track this throughout the season. What's up? You're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute.
I was going to say, it is important to point out that it is a 261,000 person contest.
Get your shit together this morning,
So to win that 20K, you got to beat 260,000 people. So it's,
no problem.
There is a lot of strategy. No problem for old Ray G. Let's go.
Easy.
Let's go.
All right. Yeah. Count that money, baby. That's what I'm talking about. So make sure you tap in. Use the promo code WAKE UP. You get free money, man. You put in $10, they match you 10. You better put in 100, you get a free 100, and you get access to our Discord over at Destination Devi for free for the year. And based on what Elon Musk is doing with Twitter and how god awful that's been with rate limits, no better time. I don't even pump my Patreon on the show, but no better time to sign up. It's the first of the month. Y'all asses all got paid. Come tap into the squad. $3 a month gets you in the Discord, Jay. But it's time to get to the show, baby. I'm excited for this one, Jay.
Yes,
we
sir.
have this was difficult. This was tough. I'm ready to piss off the world on this one right here, Jay. And make sure you remind me for the little announcement thing that we got at the end. I got to make sure we tell people about that. But all right, so we are going to go back to the future and put on our crystal ball hat, or look into the crystal ball, put on the hat, whatever that you see in the future with. And we're
we
going
hop
to
in like the car or something, isn't that?
You've never
isn't
seen
that how
Back
this
to the
works?
Future, have you? You've never seen Back to the Future.
I know that there's Ray, you know what's funny?
This is so disappointing.
For like years,
disappointing that you've never seen this movie.
For years, I've wanted the Air Mags, and I didn't even know they were in Back to the Future. I found that out a few years ago. But the Air Mags are dope. The
no
car,
clue.
What it's
no
the DeLorean,
clue.
right?
The DeLorean, man.
is
Come on, man. The
yeah,
85 DeLorean.
I don't know what year it is,
85.
but 85 DeLorean looks cool. It's a little old school, a little retro. I like it. I don't know who the old guy is, but I learned yesterday the young guy is Marty McFly, right? Yeah, that's about it. That's about all I know about Back to the Future.
Well, we're
the Air
gonna
Mags, the DeLorean, and now Marty McFly.
All right, well, we're going to go back to the future, and then we're going to fast forward 5 years from now, Jay. We're just going to think about where we are in Dynasty today and what that may look like 5 years from now at the quarterback position. This was fun. I had a lot of fun doing this, Jay, and I think people will enjoy just the conversation. So we're just going to talk through some players, right? We're just going to talk about a couple of players. But before we can go to 2028, we got to look at what happened 5 years ago, Jay. Let's just take a look, and shout out to Dynasty League Football. Shout out to Ryan McDowell, because they've got a lot of ADP that goes back very far. I think till 2014 that they've got ADP from startup drafts, startup Dynasty drafts. And just, I want the people to take a look at what it looked like, Jay, 5 years ago, according to DLF. Just the quarterback room, right? I just pulled 15 quarterbacks. Let me make this real big for everybody. So 5 years ago, Jay, do you want to read off the top 10 quarterbacks coming off the board and startup drafts according to DLF? And we didn't do super flex and all that. Just give us the top 15 quarterbacks. Just rattle them off.
I'd love to. Aaron Rodgers, Carson Wentz, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, Cam Newton for your top 5. At 6, Andrew Luck, Jimmy Garoppolo, Patrick Mahomes down at QB8. Damn. Jared Goff at 9, Kirk Cousins at 10, Matthew Stafford at 11, Marcus Mariota at 12, Tom Brady at 13, Lamar Jackson at 14, and Jameis Winston, Ray, rounding out the top 15 quarterbacks, DLF ADP in 2018. Woof. Carson Wentz. Wow.
JRich.
That was MVP Wentz, though.
That was MVP. That was MVP Wentz. So, Jay,
that was a long time ago.
Your top 5 quarterbacks in Dynasty, startup drafts, 5 years, a mere 5 years ago, Jay. Aaron Rodgers still playing. Carson Wentz kind of still playing. Deshaun Watson is back.
4 of them have no value.
Russell Wilson still playing. Cam Newton gone. Andrew Luck gone. Jimmy Garoppolo no good. Mahomes is Mahomes. Goff and Cousins are still Goff and Cousins. Stafford tumbled down the boards. Mariota is laughable. Tom Brady's retired. Lamar Jackson way high, and Jameis Winston is out of there. So just to give you a reminder of how wild things are and how things change in this game of football that we play, Jay. And right now, Jay, I'm going to go to Keep Trade Cut and just rattle off the top 10 guys today, right? Like we're going to do this right. We're going to rattle off the top 10 Dynasty quarterbacks today as valued by Keep Trade Cut. You've got Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert as your top 5, Trevor Lawrence, Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields, Anthony Richardson, and Bryce Young round out your top 10. So here today on July the 3rd, that is what your top 10 currently looks like according to Keep Trade Cut, Jay. My first question to you is, we are going to start with my hometown Dallas Cowboys. And my question to you, Jay, is 5 years from now, will Dak Prescott be a top 10 quarterback in Dynasty? And remember, 5 years from now, Jay, if you don't know, Dak Prescott will be going into his age 35 season.
Woof.
Yeah, he's not even there now. But where do you think Dak will be? He's not even inside the top 10 now. But 5 years from now, where's Dak going to be at, Jay?
I think he's probably a mid QB2 at that point in terms of value. You want to talk about his historical finishes. He started in the top 10 in 2019. He was 10th. He was 4th in 2020, 4th in 2021, 8th in 2022, and now 11th in 2023 ADP. So again, and I'll talk about this a little bit as we go through it. Once you fall outside the top 10, it is very difficult to get back in, especially when you're about quarterbacks who are aging out of being these elite dynasty assets. So that's one of the big problems for Dak Prescott, just talking about him, not even just 5 years from now, but a year from now or 2 years from now. He's not going to be in the top 10, and that's kind of the reason why. The talent isn't quite there, and he will definitely be aged out at that point to possibly be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, at least in terms of dynasty fantasy football. Real life, maybe he could be a top 10 quarterback. I don't think he probably will be at that point, but in dynasty fantasy football, he is a long past the age curve for these young folks. Youth is definitely the main driver in fantasy value, especially at the quarterback position. As much as we think that it's not, it definitely is.
Yeah, man, and he will actually be 36. Going into that 2028, that fifth year, 5 years from now, he will be 36 years old. So doubt he's even on the Dallas Cowboys at that point in time. It's just interesting, right, to think about that. Just 5 years from now, Dak is probably going to be valued where we're valuing Matthew Stafford today, where we have, those guys today. You just really don't want him. Maybe he's still playing, but is he going to be a premium asset? I don't think so. I don't think so, Jay. Let me start with another quarterback, and let's just assume health. For the sake of this exercise, let's just assume that these guys stay healthy. You don't have to assume that these guys get better, that these guys get worse, but let's just assume health for every one of these guys, and then you just take the question where you want it to go. So 5 years from now, in his age 30 season, so just having turned 30 years old, will Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa be valued as a top 10 dynasty quarterback?
So this one was really tough for me because we've talked about on this show, I've spewed my love for Tua and his efficiency and the talent that he has. And a lot of that is driven by the team that he plays on and the weapons he has around him, right? In 5 years that, we don't expect Tyreek Hill to be there, which is a bit of a problem. But even still, I think, a 30-year-old Tua, for as good as he is, he's probably not a top 10 quarterback. I think he's pretty close, and he could be an 11
health.
or a 12.
We're assuming health. He's healthy, right? No concussions. He's healthy. Okay.
Yeah, I just think that he's probably not quite top 10. And the main reason why is just like you look at the dynasty market now and you have a Bryce Young and you have an Anthony Richardson and even you have a CJ Stroud in the top 14, 15 ahead of a Tua right now. Tua right now, yes, he's at QB 15 in DLF ADP for 2023, and part of that is because of the concussions. But even still, we're talking about a guy who kind of peaked his value around QB 6. And I think if you're going to be a long stay at quarterback in the top 10, your peak at 6 probably isn't going to get it done in your age 30 season. So unfortunately for Tua, I think he's just on the way out. There's a lot of guys who I think, could be 11 or 12. And I think Tua is one of them for sure because the talent dictates it. But I don't think he's going to be in the top 10. Do you feel any differently about Tua?
Here's the reality, okay, Jay? And I want to give an honorable mention because none of us, you, me, nobody in the chat, we have no idea who these players will be. But whoever the quarterback one is in 2027 will be a top 10 dynasty quarterback. If you look at what's happened, Kyler Murray, any quarterback that's drafted inside the top 10, Jay, by and large is probably going to be valued top 12. Like, that's just the reality of it. I have no clue who the hell the 2027 QB1 is because they're probably in 8th grade right now, Jay. 9th grade, right? They're a sophomore in high school. I have no clue who it is. Sophomore in high school. But they're probably going to be a top 10 quarterback. And I think by that just logic, if you say QB1 in 2026, QB1 in 2027, QB1 in 2025, that's 3 guys. You look at some players that are probably going to linger around in there. I don't think there's any room for Tua to be a top 10 quarterback in 5 years. I don't. Even if he's healthy, man, this is a little more difficult, but I don't think there's any room for him inside that top 5, Jay. And since we're on the topic of number 1 overall picks or number 1 quarterbacks, I think it's a good segue to get your take on this player right here, Bryce Young. And what do you think Bryce Young is going to be valued? Where do you think Bryce Young is going to be valued 5 years from now, Jordan? Because I'm just going to be honest with you, man. And I told this to our patrons in the Destination Devi Discord, patreon.com/all gas, Jay, that everything that I'm hearing, everything that I'm seeing, everything that I'm reading about Bryce Young early so far in Carolina, Jay, I think the kid's going to be very special. I think Bryce Young is going to be special. And the example that I always use to talk about when I knew that he was just a different type of cat was with 1 minute and 20 seconds left versus Auburn on the road, his Heisman winning season. I mean, goosebumps. I was flying home from my mom's Thanksgiving. I was flying home, and there was a cluster of us on the plane that paid for the internet, and we're watching the game on the plane. And with 90 seconds left, he takes the ball. I believe he was inside his own 10-yard line, Jay. 3rd and longs, running the ball, just ice water in his veins. Boom, 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 down the field, on the road. He played awful that game, but when they needed him, dude, ice water in his veins. And I'm like, this kid is special. And I'm reading everything out of Carolina about his leadership, how veterans, I think we are looking at, if there were going to be a Drew Brees, Russell Wilson 2.0 type player, and this is why for me, Bryce has been my quarterback too in this 2023 class, I think he's going to be special. And for me, I do think Bryce Young, 5 years from now, going into, I believe, that will be his 6th NFL season. So he will, if he's good, he will have already been extended. He's proven himself. I think he will definitely be valued as a top 10 quarterback 5 years from now. Where are you at with Bryce Young and his value 5 years from now?
So I don't quite have him that high. I'd probably have him like in that 2 range, that 10 to 12, not quite top 10. But everything you're saying makes perfect sense. And I do agree that the bull case is that Drew Brees type of quarterback. Again, we'll see if the volume ultimately ends up being there for Bryce Young. And I think that's what's going to drive his value, right? And the reason why it's tough to put him in the top 10 at times is because we don't know what his pass volume is going to look like. And again, we're projecting, of course, but at least with some of these quarterbacks, we know kind of what their volume will look like this year and probably 5 years from now. We can't really say that with Bryce Young, but obviously you're saying the volume will be there, right? He will pass the ball a lot. He'll be very effective, hyper accurate, which I think we all expect him to be. For me, it's more so the ceiling concerns. And we already talk about how if you don't have that rushing component, how good you have to be, like how good Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert have to be to retain that top 5, top 10 value, because they don't provide the stuff on the ground that we need from the top quarterbacks to stay in the very, very high end of quarterbacks. And Bryce Young probably isn't going to provide that. So he'll have to be an elite passer. And to your point, he could be, absolutely, but he's a guy that I would have just outside the top 10. Again, he'll still be very young. He'll be 26, 27 years old at the time that time comes around. So still a very young quarterback and definitely worth valuing in Dynasty, but a guy who's probably, for me, outside the top 10, probably in that 10 to 13 range. And just to bring up your point about the rookie quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence, QB7, drafted as a rookie, obviously first overall. Justin Fields was QB13. And then you have Anthony Richardson, QB9. And then you have Bryce Young, QB13, CJ Stroud, QB14. All top 5 picks. All right, Justin Fields wasn't, but the talent and the pedigree was there. So when these guys get drafted high, they are valued right in that fringe top 12 in Dynasty. And so that's where when you're talking about 2027 QB1, we don't know who it is, but if that guy's drafted in the top 5, he's probably going to be a top 15 quarterback in Dynasty.
Yeah, no doubt. So that's Bryce Young. Let's talk about another kid from the 2023 class, Jay. Anthony Richardson. Let's talk about JRich, Indianapolis Colts' new starting quarterback, the freak. We know he's athletic. We know he's big. We know he's fast. We know he's got a little bit of development that he has to take on, right? He's not going to come in ready to go from day one. But again, like Bryce Young, 5 years from now, JRich will have completed his rookie contract. And if he's as good as we think he is, he will have earned that second deal from Indianapolis, Jay. So as we're watching these wonderful highlights of Anthony Richardson at Florida, I'm going to ask you the question again. 5 years from now, is Anthony Richardson going to be valued as a top 10 quarterback for fantasy football purposes?
For me, absolutely he will be. And I think you look at what Jalen Hurts has done and kind of his ascension to be a top quarterback, that's the path I would probably put Anthony Richardson on. And so you look at what Jalen Hurts has done, 2018 QB 31, 2019 QB 21, and then in 2020, when people thought finally he could be something in his third season, second year starting, QB 8, and then, QB 11, and then now QB 7 last season, and this season all the way up to QB 3. So you see the ascension for Jalen Hurts and kind of what he did, and then you look at some of these guys and how they peaked in the top 10. That 4 to 5 year window is approximately what you see from a lot of these guys, and I think JRich, when he finally gets there, could be at the top, right? Could be in the top 5, in the top 10. I don't think I have him quite that high in 5 years, but he definitely could be, because you look at Josh Allen, he's been QB2 for 3 years in a row. You look at Patrick Mahomes, he's been QB1 for 5 years in a row.
Yeah, 5 years in a row.
So again, I don't expect those kind of runs, but Jalen Hurts could very well be QB3 for the next 3 to 4 years. And then you talk about 3 or 4 years from now, JRich could be that guy that's in the middle of his peak as QB4, QB5, QB2, whatever he may be, because he has that dual threat ability. So for me, he's definitely in the top 10. How do you feel about JRich, and what do you think his trajectory could look like? Because we kind of have the Josh Allen route where it started off slow, then he picked up. Jalen Hurts, kind of the same situation. It's usually around that year 3 when you see these guys that are kind of developmental take that ascension, and then that's where, when talking 5-year windows, the peak would be in that 5th year, probably, for Anthony Richardson in terms of value.
Yeah, I think he's 100% going to be in there. He's got the thing that if you talk to a lot of people who scout, who are in the NFL player scouting world, you go to the Senior Bowl, you talk to Michael Coe from the Panthers, some of my frat brothers. The thing that they always talk about are the players who can extend beyond the X's and O's, right? And you can look through just the course of the last 5 years for us in this game of fantasy football, and you can point to the Justin Fields. You can point to a Lamar Jackson early in his career. You can point to Mitchell Trubisky back when he was in Chicago. When you have quarterbacks that have an ability to extend plays with their legs, and they can make plays when the X's and O's break down, it just gives them another layer and opportunity to score fantasy points, right? Mac Jones, Phillip Rivers, those type of statute quarterbacks are sitting fucking ducks in the pocket. They can't move. There's nowhere for them to go. You get pressure on them, that's it. When you've got a quarterback with the athletic talent and skill set of Anthony Richardson, his natural athleticism that God gave him is going to give him a leg up on being able to extend plays or make something out of nothing, even if the progressions break down, even if the accuracy isn't there right away, which is going to buy him some time. And he's got the capital to where he's going to get a couple of years of runway to succeed or fail. So as we do this exercise, the same thing that we said with Tua, I'm not going to put an injury label on him for the purpose of this exercise. We're going to assume health. You can assume growth, or you can assume regression. For me, I'm going to assume that he is going to get better. I love Shane Steichen. I love the landing spot of Indianapolis, and I think he's a phenomenal talent. I do think 5 years from now, Anthony Richardson will be valued and talked about as a top 10 quarterback in fantasy football. And, again, for those of y'all just tapping in, this is an impossible fucking task. Like, it's just hard to do. We want to have some fun, calm down, enjoy the show, enjoy the conversation. I want to hear what y'all think, but none of us, me, JRich, or anybody watching this, knows what the hell is going to happen 5 years from now. Again, Jimmy Garoppolo was being drafted as QB6 a mere 5 years ago. So anything could happen, but it's fun to just kind of talk about and start thinking about these things, Jay. So I think Bryce Young's going to be there. You don't. We both agree on Anthony Richardson, Jay. So let me give you another quarterback to talk about. And let's talk about a guy who was in the unanimous MVP in 2019. Massive contract, phenomenal talent. But let's talk about that man out of Baltimore, Lamar freaking Jackson. Phenomenal player. We know what he is. We know what he can do. Jay, 5 years from now, is Lamar Jackson going to be valued as a top 10 quarterback in Dynasty?
This is probably, of all the quarterbacks, I'd say Lamar is probably one of the hardest ones in terms of ranking. Probably because I don't know what to expect from him from a decline standpoint. We say we can project regression, we can project growth, we can project decline, and we have to assume that at 31, 32 years old, he's not going to be running for 800 yards a year. And I think the difference between him and Justin Fields is that I actually believe that Lamar Jackson is a great passer. And so regardless of how you feel about him when he's 31, he will still be a good passer when he's 31. The question is, can he still return that value on the ground that we expect? Probably not. And how does that impact his fantasy value? And like I talked about before, the biggest thing here is the longest run in history that we have of top 10 quarterbacks is actually Russell Wilson. He was a QB, he was a top 10 QB for 8 seasons from 2015 all the way to 2022. down now in Denver, he's QB 19. We'll see if he can hop back in. But that's the longest run. And obviously, I think Mahomes will get there. But of all the quarterbacks that are still active, he has the longest run. And so Lamar is a quarterback that I think that could do it. But for me, he is outside the top 10. I just don't know how his body will hold up. And I think with the youth that is coming, especially next season, we both really liked Drake May and Caleb Williams, both kind of believe that they could be top 10 guys. And so with the youth kind of coming in and what we expect from a decline standpoint for Lamar Jackson, I just think by the time he's 32 years old, he'll still be a great quarterback, but probably won't be a top 10 dynasty quarterback. And that's the big issue for me. Ray, do you feel any differently?
This one was hard, man. This is part of it is I think it's human nature. And I don't blame any of us for thinking like this, Jay, but it's hard to move on. Moving on is difficult in life, just in general, man. Moving on from a relationship, moving on from a job, moving on from a friendship, and moving on from an attachment to players is difficult, right? Mm-hmm. On Keep Trade Cut, Jay, QB 20 and above, the top 20 quarterbacks on Keep Trade Cut, how many of them are 30 years old?
Probably, I don't know, I'd say 7. Probably maybe not even 7. 0?
0. Dak is the closest. He's right there at 29.9 years old. There are 0 players over the age of 30 being valued currently as a top 20 quarterback, Jay. And the reality is we love youth. We love the shiny new toy. Jay, you bought a MacBook 13-inch Air, the new one, the M2 one. They just released the 15-inch one. You're like, fuck, I want the 15. Damn. Those 2 extra inches, I need it. I need those 2 extra inches, right? We are. Where's the rim shot? Where's the? Good job, Jay. Good job, Jay. Good job. But that's what we do, right? We chase the new toy. And 5 years from now, the reality is we're going to have like 4 more top 10 incoming quarterbacks. We are. That's just the reality of the position. I love Lamar Jackson, Jay, but 5 years from now, it doesn't mean he won't be good. Doesn't mean he won't be of value. But is the dynasty community, are they going to value Lamar Jackson as a top 10 quarterback 5 years from now? Jay, he's QB 7 today. You think he's going to go up 5 years from now? He's valued as QB Probably 7 not. Today. 5 years from now, it's going to go higher? No, man, I don't think he is. I don't think he will be.
And that's the biggest problem is that for people who are just seeing this like, oh, how could he not be? It's like, well, someone has to fall because when you look historically, and again, if you want to look at the data, it is in the description of the show. Quarterbacks fall out, and once they fall out, they do not get back in. And the thing that the bigger problem is that there will be guys coming in that replace these guys. In 2018, 7 quarterbacks that are currently in the NFL were in the top 10.
Talk about it.
Not about guys that are currently in the top 10, because there's only 2 of them who are still in the top 10, or 3 of them who are still in the top 10 who were in the top 10 in 2018. So 3 guys who are currently in the top 10 were in the top 10 in 2018. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Deshaun Watson. That's it. So you talk about 5 years from now, we have top 10, but there may only be 3 or 4 or 5. Now, again, part of that is because the league was a little bit older back then at quarterback. And we've talked about this a lot. This youth movement at quarterback is huge, and we'll see how it affects things down the line. And I still believe there will be a decent chunk of these guys in the top 10, but they won't all be in the top 10 because the 2026 quarterback won, the 2027 quarterback won. They will be fringe top 10 guys. And we still believe there's 2 very, very talented quarterbacks on the way just next season. So in 5 years, where are they going to be ranked in Dynasty on top of the regression and decline of a Herbert, of a Burrow, of a Lamar, of a Lawrence, of a Fields, of like all these guys? So again, it's a very difficult exercise, but you have to understand that everyone who's in there now is not going to be in there in 5 years. And it may only be 5 guys who are still on the list. And I think that's where you look at Lamar and say, he's a guy who can fall off a little bit, because if the rushing isn't there, how is the community going to value him as a top 10 dynasty asset? It's
tough, man. It is. He'll be 31, which is not old, right? 31 is not old in quarterback years, and we're seeing quarterbacks play longer and longer. The new rules that the NFL have implemented sort of protects these guys, especially the quarterback position. So there's no doubt in my mind Lamar Jackson is going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL 5 years from now. I 1,000% with every fiber in my body believe that he will be a starting quarterback 5 years from now, and still a good starting quarterback. Do I believe that he will still carry top 10 value? I don't. I don't. And that's just the nature of time. That's the nature of new things. And people chase youth. We do it all the time, Jay. We do it all the time. So I'd have to say, to answer the Lamar Jackson question, as much as I freaking love him, I do not believe that he will be valued inside the top 10 5 years from now. So let's go to another quarterback that is also very dynamic on the ground. And my friend Nate List, shout out to Nate List, he put a little tweet up yesterday comparing this quarterback to Michael Vick and how much better his numbers are than Michael Vick's. And, you know, we like to trash can on this player all the time, but being valued currently on Keep Trade Cut as quarterback 8, Jay, your favorite quarterback in the NFL.
My favorite quarterback in the NFL. That's
Justin Fields, Jay. So I got to ask you the question, 5 years from now, will Justin Fields be valued as a top 10 quarterback for Dynasty Fantasy Football?
He very well could be, but for me, he is not. He is not. And I think I kind of led this with the Lamar Jackson discussion, is as much as I believe that Lamar Jackson is a great quarterback and a great rusher of the football, I can't say that about Justin Fields right now. I don't know if he's going to be a great passer in 5 years. He very well could be, but again, for me, if I'm only betting on the rushing skill set, even though the guy will probably only be, 27, 28 years old in 5 years, I'm still not betting on that guy to be a top 10 quarterback if the passing doesn't get there. Because I think the reality is, and I think we all kind of expect this for Justin Fields, if he doesn't become a better passer, he's not going to be a quarterback in the NFL in 5 years. You just can't get away with being such a pedestrian quarterback if all you offer is what's on the ground. Because we've seen it over the past couple of years for Justin Fields. He's been a great quarterback for fantasy, but for the NFL, you're just not going to make it in the league if you can't pass. And Lamar Jackson has shown that, and Justin Fields hasn't yet. And to be fair to Fields, he hasn't played a whole lot, right? He still has lots of development on the way. But if he doesn't show it and he doesn't show what he can be, he's got to be a no for me. And with all the talent coming in at quarterback, there is just no way I can put Justin Fields in the top 10 in 5 years. I'm assuming you don't feel any differently because we're kind of on the same wavelength with Fields.
I agree. There's nothing more for me to add. I agree with you. I think 5 years from now, he will not be valued as a top 10 quarterback. I happen to have a little more faith in his development as a passer than you do. The thing that scares me about Justin Fields is he just gets hit so much, man. He takes so much punishment. He takes so much abuse. He holds on to the ball forever. He takes a lot of sacks. He's not an efficient thrower of the football. He is, the way that he gets hit, and this is just my opinion, right? When I'm watching him play, visually, it reminds me of RG3 when he would get banged up. And I've never seen a quarterback get just ragdolled around. It felt like as much as I saw Robert Griffin III get just drug around. Now, that's a whole nother conversation for another day, because I think Washington failed that kid in more ways than one, right? And a whole damn campaign that he was going to be ready for week one, sort of what it felt like rushing his recovery from the ACL tear. But I just don't know if he's going to last, because I think he has to rely on the legs a little bit more than Lamar Jackson, because I think Lamar is a better passer than Justin Fields.
And always has too at that.
I'm hoping he can take the next step, Jay. I really do. But 5 years from now, if I had to bank on that, I would say I don't think he's going to be inside the top 10. I just don't. He's an incredible rusher. I think he's an incredible talent with so much talent, so much tools. Is Eberflus and company going to be able to get the most out of him? I don't know. So this is not an anti-Fields thing, but like you said, somebody's got to drop off. So for me, Justin Fields, I don't believe he will be valued as a top 10 quarterback. I agree with you with that one 100%, Jay. Let's go to another guy. Let's go to a guy that is a very good thrower of the football. He probably has one of the strongest arms in the NFL. Let's talk about him, man. Let's go out west. Let's go to L.A. and talk about the kid, Justin freaking Herbert, Jay. We're talking about 6'5", 6'6", 230 plus pounds, rocket launcher attached to his shoulder. He's got Kellen Moore this year, so I think he's going to have probably the best season of his career this year with Kellen Moore, Quentin Johnson, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. But I'm going to ask you the question, 5 years from now, Justin Herbert, he'll be 30 years old. Justin Herbert, top 10?
He is top 10 for me, but we'll get to the list eventually. And it was tough. And it's not that I don't believe in Justin Herbert. I think that's the biggest misconception with this list, is that when you start putting it together, you have to allow youth to take its place in the list. And that's where you start looking at age and you say Justin Herbert's 30. Okay, so Justin Herbert's been throwing for 4,500 yards and 30 touchdowns every season for like 10 years. And we've seen what that lends itself to. We've seen Dak Prescott go from QB 11 to QB 20 to QB 10 to QB 4 to QB 4 to QB 8 to QB 11. And he's doing the same types of things. Now, he did get hurt at times and he's disappointed at times, but he's still been a great quarterback. And he's been in the same offense under Kellen Moore for years when he was a top quarterback. So I believe that Herbert can be a top quarterback, but in 5 years, is he still going to be this top 5 dynasty quarterback? I don't think he will. And I'll make the case for other quarterbacks as well, who now, right now, the non-elite guys who are still very good, a Lamar Jackson, a Joe Burrow, a Justin Herbert, guys that are in the top 5, in the top 10, in the top 7 or 8 or so, guys we really want. But is Herbert still going to be in that much favor? The youth is gone now. There's way sexier young quarterbacks available. Yeah. Oh, man, just wait till you can get your hands on a 25-year-old Caleb Williams. Oh, man, give me that. Or a Drake May or an Arch Manning or a Drew Allar or 2026 QB1 2 years into his career. And I think that's the mindset the dynasty managers have. And we've seen this as much as in the chat, and we can be in denial today. Herbert may not be this guy who's like in the top 5 in 5 years. He could be, because I think that, to be fair to Herbert, he hasn't hit that elite ceiling quite yet. He's been very, very close at times where people are like, oh, he's QB3, he's QB4. He's right there with Mahomes and Allen. But is he going to be there in 5 years? That's the most difficult part. You actually have Herbert ranked higher than I do. So how about you speak about Herbert and how you feel about him in 5 years?
Yeah, I just think he is. I think he's going to be that type of quarterback. Having Kellen Moore there, whose offenses, the 4 years that he's been OC in Dallas have been top 5 across the board. I think this is the change that he needed. They're getting him some weapons. He's needed some more reliable guys. The offensive line was absolute dog shit last year. He really only had Austin Eckler to throw to consistently. I mean, he was throwing to Carter and all these other random receivers that you've never heard of. And, he was gutting it out through a rib injury. I think Herbert will be there. I think he feels very much like how Dak feels now is how Herbert's going to feel then. Like, he's going to be good. He's going to produce. Are there going to be younger, sexier assets out there?
Right?
Absolutely.
Kirk Cousins, right? All these guys, just compilers. They get a ton of numbers, but don't quite hit that top end. He's better than Cousins.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem with Herbert, man. And we talked about this yesterday. I feel like he's Isaiah Thomas. I feel like he's Isaiah Thomas from the Detroit Pistons, that he's just stuck in an era, and more importantly, a freaking division where he's got Michael Jordan. And is Herbert, maybe there's that 1 year where the Chargers get it done and they take down the Chiefs.
But it could be this year, Ray. It could be this year, right? When they have QJ, they have all these guys. And I think that's what people aren't accounting for. Like I don't think it's this year. Acting like Herbert won't develop at all. I don't think Herbert needs to develop. I just think that things need to fall in place for him better. And we've seen, but they are. The case for the Chargers in general.
But right? They are now. They are. The offensive coordinator, the O-line was a wreck, getting him some weapons. I think Herbert will be there. He may not be valued top 5, top 6, but a top 10 quarterback in his age 30 season, just having turned 30, I think I can comfortably say, I believe, I don't know shit, but I think Justin Herbert will be there. So let's pivot way young, Jay, to a player that most people on here probably don't know anything about, never heard of him. We don't even have film for the kid because he didn't do much last season, man. But let's talk about this player from Penn State, not eligible until 2025, Jay. But Drew Allar, the young signal caller out of Penn State, 6'4.5", 230 pounds. If you go to 24/7 Sports, Jay, his comparable on his recruiting profile is Josh Allen, right? Number one quarterback in this class, Jay. This kid can spin it. He's big. He can move around. He's athletic. And he's going to be the starting quarterback for Penn State this fall. Drew Allar is 2025 eligible. So let's just go with this theory that this is the QB1 in 2025. We got Caleb Williams coming up in 24. Drew Allar is a top 5 pick in 2025, right? Let's just go with that. So that means going into the 2028 season, which will be 5 years from what we're talking about, will be his year. He'll be going into year 4, year 3, year 4. Drew Allar, top 5 pick in 2025, QB1 off the board. Will he be valued as a top 10 quarterback in Dynasty if he is a top 5 pick in 2025?
Absolutely. Absolutely, without question. You know, you talk about the tools and you talk about the skill set, and this is more so talking about the theory behind all of these things that we're looking for in these top guys. If he gets those Josh Allen comparables, and he's a top 5 quarterback, right? Trevor Lawrence was QB7 off the board in 2021 as a rookie, as a number 1 overall pick. We're already talking about Anthony Richardson, QB9. He was the QB, 4 off the board, QB5, I forget or QB 4 or 5 off the board. I forget the exact number there. And then Kyler Murray, right? When he was drafted, he was QB8 off the board. So again, this is what we're talking about when we say these guys who are top draft picks that get into the top 10 early. Kyler Murray's been a top 10 quarterback ever since his rookie season. This is the first year he hasn't, and the only reason why he's not is because he tore his ACL, right? So you look at what happens when you have this elite skill set, high draft capital, all these things coming together. That's a top 10 quarterback in Dynasty. You may not believe it. You may not want to believe it. You may like Justin Herbert better, but when Drew Allar is playing like a Justin Herbert 3 years into his career in 2028, are you really going to take Justin Herbert over him when you have a guy who's 5 years younger and he's going to be on your dynasty team for the next 15 years, right? And you're looking at the same type of skill set, but you're getting 5 years of youth added onto that.
So let me show this one more time because I know this sounds fucking insane to be like, oh yeah, he's top 10. Oh yeah, the 20. That's just what happens. Let me show this one more time. Yep. July of 2018. This was your top 15. In July of 2018, Jimmy Garoppolo, QB7. Cam Newton, QB5, should have been there. Deshaun Watson, you got Jared Goff as QB9. This was 2 years after he was drafted. Jared Goff, number 1 overall. This was 2 years after he was drafted number 1 overall in 2016. He's still valued as QB9, Jay. Let me show you what happened the very next season, right? Same, we're still using DLF, but we just looked at July 2018. Here goes July 2019. Look at how much that changed in 1 year. Now Mahomes moves up from 8 to 1. Andrew Luck is at 2. Watson still holding firm at 3. But would you look at who's at QB 4?
Year 2. Year 2, Baker.
Who is that?
Year 2, Baker Mayfield. And Ray, what's crazy, in 2020, he was still a top 10 QB after he wasn't even good. And he was, again, number 1 overall pick, highly drafted. People like the guy. People believe in
moxie.
him.
He's got that moxie.
Insane.
He's got that dog in him.
Doing all the commercials,
got
right?
that dog in him. Putting the flag down at the midfield. I mean, this is just what happens. So I think that 5 years from now, Drew Allar is going to be valued as a top 10 quarterback.
Man,
he's going to be valued as a top 10. It's just going to happen. Or whoever, Cade Klubnik, whoever the fucking QB1 is in 2025, they're going to be valued as a top 10 quarterback going into the 2028 season. That's just what it's going to be. Like, wrap your mind around it, get on, move on. He's going to be valued as a top 10 quarterback, Jay. That's just what's going to happen. It's what's going to happen, Jay. All right.
Even year 3, Kirk Cousins was a top 10 quarterback, which is wild to say.
Year 3, Kirk Cousins?
Top 10 quarterback. And now, QB 16, 5 years later.
All right, Jay. All right. Well, let's get into let's just throw a couple of more names out there of some players, Jay. Kyler Murray. Is Kyler Murray going to be valued as a top 10 quarterback 5 years from now? He's currently valued as on Keep Trade Cut, and we know the injury, and we know that. He's currently valued as QB 12 right now, behind Deshaun, behind Bryce, behind JRich, behind Fields. Kyler Murray, top 10 in 5 years, yay or nay?
He is not for me, but he's probably the one guy that definitely could be because the youth is still there. Again, like I talked about, he's been in the top 8 ever since he was a rookie. This is the first year he's
going
not
to be 31. Youth, he's going to be 31. He's going to be 31.
Yeah, and I think people are already kind of getting sick of Kyler and what he could be. Like, again, I've talked about how of all the quarterbacks on this chart, 2 have left the top 10 and returned to the top 10, and they're both because of circumstance. I believe that Kyler will do that next season, could be a top 10 guy. But again, if some of these guys, if Drake May and Caleb Williams are top 5 picks, they could be taken ahead of a Kyler Murray. So it's an interesting conversation and to see what happens. And I think part of it too, Ray, is if Kyler is traded, which I think we all think could be a possibility, I think that could tank his value a little bit over the long term. I think short term, it'll be okay, but long term, it could be a bit of a problem for Kyler Murray. I just don't think in 5 years he's top 10. I think he could be very close, like I mentioned, with the Bryce Young and a Tua. I just don't know if he's going to be quite top 10.
All right, let me give you another name, Jay. You CJ Stroud. We talked about JRich. We talked about Bryce Young. Talk to me about CJ Stroud and why we have not heard his name. You talk about JRich being the 4th overall pick. Well, CJ Stroud was pick second overall?
Technically two, because Houston wanted to screw me out of some money. But yeah, so the thing with Stroud, basically he needs to be Joe Burrow. That's his path to top 10. And Ray, honestly, I just don't see that quite path for CJ Stroud. And part of it is Houston a little bit. I don't want to discount the team too much, but when you trade your 1st overall pick just to go get Will Anderson, I'm not really on board with that. I don't think it was a great move. Don't think it's going to work out long term. But yeah, Stroud has to be a Herbert, has to be a Burrow if he's going to be a top 10 guy. And again, for me, he's just not quite that. I'm assuming you agree, because I know you're not the biggest Stroud fan, especially compared to Bryce Young. And I think both of us over the long term would rather believe and put our money into Bryce Young over CJ Stroud. And that's really what the conversation is that if I'm picking a QB to develop and become an NFL franchise quarterback that can be dominant in the NFL, I would absolutely pick Bryce Young over CJ Stroud.
All right, Jay, one more. And this is a player, and I'm not going to say who, and you don't say who either. One of us do not have this player inside their top 10. And one of us have this player as number 5 overall in their top 10. So, Jay, Trevor Lawrence. Is Trevor Lawrence, just make the case for Trevor Lawrence to being a top 10 quarterback 5 years from now. Make the case for him.
For me, it's the fact that he's Trevor Lawrence. He's the golden boy. He's the chosen one, right? And I think that people don't view that as a big asset, but it really is. Like, he really could be the next big thing at quarterback. He's a guy who already beat Justin Herbert in the playoffs last year, down 28 points, and that was massive for him. He's a guy who was top 7 at the time he was a rookie, probably the highest ADP we've seen from a rookie quarterback ever, right? Ever. Caleb Williams is probably the only one who could come close next season, but even he may not be QB7 off the board in 2024. And so you look at all those factors behind him. Right now, he could be starting his 5-year run as a top 10 quarterback. And so for me, I do believe there is more to come for Trevor Lawrence. I do think he does have some rushing upside to, again, help that case for the top 10. You obviously disagree. Not a big fan of Trevor Lawrence. Would prefer another quarterback.
No.
You have him outside of your top 10.
No. It's not that I'm not a big fan of Trevor Lawrence. You are the one who shit on Trevor Lawrence all his rookie year, and I went to defend the kid and said, you can't take that season into consideration because he was playing with Urban Meyer. I don't know, man. I feel like he's very good. But that's just what he is.
Why
He's
can't
just
he
good.
be Justin Herbert?
I guess he can't. I'm not saying he can't.
He can, right?
I'm not saying he can't. I did not say. Can I finish, Skip? Please, can I finish? I just started talking. I think he's good, man, but I don't know. Like he feels like a better version of Kirk Cousins to me. Like, he's just good, but are people going to be in on that 5 years from now versus the youth, right? That's what it is, versus the new shiny toy that's coming in. I don't know, man. I go back and forth on this one. T-Law should be in, but then I can also see a world where people are like, I just don't want him. I want the young Drew Allar. I want the Arch Manning. I want the Dante Moore. I just want those guys. We do that now. People do that now. Oh, Dak's 29. He's too old. I see people right now. Jared Goff is old. He's 28. And people are saying, oh, he's old. So I don't know, Jay. But for me, he's valued as QB6 right now. He's only 24 years old, so he'll be going into age 29 season. He should be in there. I don't know, man. That's one. I don't know. I don't think so, but
it's interesting, right? Because again, like you mentioned, it's the age factor. And I do view T-Law even in 5 years as a guy who kind of has youth on his side. He's not quite at the end of his career quite yet in terms of the dynasty managers, but I do think there is a lot of good things to come for T-Law. Can he stay in the top 10? We'll see. I do think that, that T-Law allure is still alive and well, right? And you look at Andrew Luck and kind of what he did over the years. He was a top quarterback for a long time, and it was because he was the chosen one.
All right, Jay.
He was great on top of that.
All right, Jay. I want to drop the list, but I'm going to ask this question to you first. The top 4 quarterbacks right now in Dynasty are Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and Joe Burrow. I just want to say we both have all 4 of those guys inside of our top 10 5 years from now. But there are 2 players that are outside of the top 5, Jay. And I'm going to just start with Joe Burrow. Do you believe that Joe Burrow is going to be a top 5 quarterback 5 years from now? Not top 10. We're moving the goalposts for these players because they are elite. 5 years from now, Joe Burrow, which is crazy, is going to be going into his, age 31 season for Joe Burrow?
Yeah, he'll be pretty old.
He'll be 31 years old. Will he be a top 5 quarterback 5 years from now?
Top 5, no. I just think, you look at what's happened over the years with the Daks, with the Russell Wilsons. They start to get a little bit older, and it's not because the talent goes away. It's just they're a little bit older. People don't value them as highly. He won't be a top 5 quarterback. Okay.
Jalen Hurts, Jay. Will Jalen Hurts be a top 5 quarterback? And I believe Hurts is going to be going into 5 years from now. It will be his 8th. He will start the 2028 season at 30 years old. Will Jalen Hurts at 30 years old be valued as a top 5 quarterback in Dynasty?
Very well could be, but not for me. Not quite top 5. I think he very well could be, but again, I don't think he's quite top 5. I think someone may prefer to have a different style quarterback over a Jalen Hurts 5 years from now.
Okay, Jay, I'm going to ask another question. Josh Allen going into his age 32 season. No Stephon Diggs probably. 32 years old. Is Josh Allen going to be valued as a top 5 quarterback at age 32?
So for me, he is. And I think Josh Allen was probably one of the harder guys to rank, not because is he a top 10 guy, but how high do I put him and where does the regression ultimately lie? And I think for me, the reason why I have him where I have him is because while he may regress, he's also one of the players I'm most confident in to be a top 10 guy and arguably as well a top 5 guy. And I really would probably compare him to what we saw from Aaron Rodgers, who was QB1, QB2, QB3, QB1, QB1, QB5, and then finally dropped off to QB13. We've seen Josh Allen be QB2 3 straight years in a row, QB8 the year before that in 2020. I think we could see a 6 or 7 year run for Josh Allen in the top 5. Now, you mentioned 5 years from now, that would be a pretty long run to stay in the top 5. So we'll see what happens and does his skills ultimately decline. But I think the talent that Josh Allen is, I'd be a little bit surprised if he was outside the top 5. But if he was, he'd probably still be very close and definitely still a top 10 quarterback.
And I am fascinated by the chat. I love it. I freaking love it because it's all over the place. You got people saying, hell no, yes, no, yes, nope, not a chance in hell. This was tough. Again, we are going to piss people off. Y'all are going to be mad, but you go to Keep Trade Cut right now. I know, that 30 isn't old. How many 30-year-olds are valued as top 20 quarterbacks right now in Dynasty on Keep Trade Cut? The answer is 0. 0. And I know, again, in this moment, on July 3rd, 2023, it feels like there's no... Are you guys crazy? 30, they're still going to be top 5. But if you just go back and look historically at ADP with quarterbacks, with incoming the only class that didn't have a quarterback inside the top 10, top 15, that was a first-round pick was 2022 because it was Kenny Pickett. Nobody... But, Jay, had it been Malik Willis... or somebody that people like, they would have been pumped right up there in the top 15.
Probably.
No one really cared about Kenny Pickett, man. But you go back, 2021, Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, all valued top 15. 2020, Joe Burrow, Tua. Go back to 2019 with Kyler, 28. Every year, this is just what's going to happen. Somebody's got to get pushed out. Somebody's getting knocked out.
And we didn't even bring up Lance. QB10 on GLF ADP in 2021.
QB10. Like, some of these guys are getting pushed out, Jay. So let me ask you this question, and then we'll get to it. But Drake May, all right, Jay? Drake May, 2024 eligible, North Carolina signal caller, 6'4", 230 pounds, incredible runner, can throw the ball, put accuracy. He's got everything, man. He's got all the tools. You see him right here throwing to Tez Walker. The transfer wide receiver is going to be phenomenal for North Carolina this fall. But Drake May, Jay, right now, they're all draft prognosticators, scouts, whatever you want to call it, said that had he come out in 2023, he and Caleb Williams would have been QB1 and QB2 over all of these guys. So Drake May, is he going to be inside your top 10? 5 years from now, is Drake May going to be valued as a top 10 quarterback?
Yeah, absolutely. Year 4, Drake May, going into year 5, probably going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the league. Again, it's just what I project, and part of it is, what we've seen over the years, right? And he is one of the more talented quarterbacks we've seen. And Ray, I think you would even argue this as well. In terms of a skill set and tool standpoint, Drake May is probably even a better prospect than Caleb Williams is. It's just Caleb Williams has that Mahomes allure that people keep talking about. But May, with his rushing ability and his throwing ability, he probably profiles Josh Allen more so than any other quarterback we've seen over the past few years.
Yeah, and Joe, I'm with you. Great players usually play longer at elite levels. No trend here. Just an influx of talent or not. I think some of these guys that get pushed out are going to be great and still be awesome, and they're going to be values. You're going to be like, oh, you want to take, I don't know, Dante Moore over this Lamar Jackson? You go ahead. I'll take Lamar and smash you 10 out of 10 times. But it's just the reality of how dynasty gamers do it. Like, they just want the shiny new toy, Jay. And I'm just going to ask you, probably the shiniest toy that we've seen come into the NFL in a very, very, very long time, Jay, and everybody is excited. You're seeing teams trade up. I think we're going to see some wild stuff happen in 2024, but I'm going to ask the question, 5 years from now, I'm going to make this even more difficult than the initial show. He's not going to be top 5. Is USC quarterback Caleb Williams going to be ranked the number 1 quarterback in Dynasty 5 years from now?
He very well could be. And I think that's the reality of the situation, is that as much as we say Mahomes is QB1, and I mean, I'm not going to bury the lead. Mahomes is both of our QB1 because he's been the QB1 for 5 straight years. If anybody was to come in and replace him, it would probably be Caleb Williams, because you have to have that special talent, that allure, that thing that people gravitate to. And Caleb Williams already has that. He already gets the Mahomes comps. And I'm not saying that he's going to be, because I don't think he's going to be. I still think Mahomes is going to be a better quarterback than he is. But the reality is that if he's as good as people think he can be, and he plays to it for 4 years, going into year 5, he absolutely could be the QB1 if he hits all the ceilings that people expect of him already. And I think that's the bigger conversation here. It's not could he do it, and do we really project him to do it? Because of course we don't. We don't project anybody to be as good as Mahomes ever, because he's just so good. But if there was a guy, he would probably be the guy, unfortunately. I still think that Drake May has better tools and more talent. But if I was to pick a guy who could be that guy, it would probably be Caleb Williams.
All right, Jay, let's roll your list, baby. Let's go to your top 10 list. Run it down from 10 to 1.
Oh, from 10, okay.
Give us your top 10, Jay. 5 years from now, we've done this whole show. We talked through Fields. We've talked through Lamar. We've talked through Dak. We've talked through all these players, Jay. But 5 years from now, because we're going to be so wrong, this is going to be when we look back on this, we're going to put a bookmark on this. We're going to be so wrong, so wrong. But again, fun to look at the exercise, fun to go back. And again, because I just like talking about Jimmy Garoppolo. 5 years ago, Jimmy Garoppolo was being drafted as a top 10 quarterback. Jimmy Garoppolo, QB7, right ahead of Patrick Mahomes. And man, what a fleece job Jimmy Garoppolo pulled on the 49ers, Jay. But here's your top 10. Give it to us, Jay.
All right, Ray, and the chat, let me know if you have any questions. But here is the top 10 from 10 to 1. Justin Herbert, Arch Manning as my 2025 QB1.
2026. 2026 QB1.
2026, my apologies. 2026 QB1. Anthony Richardson at QB8. Joe Burrow at QB7. Jalen Hurts at QB6. Trevor Lawrence QB5. Drake May and Caleb Williams at 4 and 3. Josh Allen at 2. And, of course, the Hall of Famer, Patrick Mahomes at 1. And Patty's already saying Josh Allen way too high. I do kind of agree with that. I do see a world where Josh Allen isn't, the second quarterback overall. But again, compared to Jalen Hurts, if I was picking a quarterback that needs to be up there, that probably will be up there in terms of talent, in terms of ability, and I understand you could have the decline. I get all that, but it was very difficult for me to put Josh Allen over Caleb Williams or behind Caleb Williams, Drake May, as talented as I believe they are. That's kind of where the tipping point was for me, is where do I put Josh Allen? Because he could easily be, 7 or 8, but he also could be, if he takes that Rodgers trajectory, still in the top 5. 2 is probably a little bit too high, and I would openly admit that, but part of it is my confidence in him to be a top quarterback for the long term, and that's why I do have Allen so high.
And our girl Jo, shout out to Jo, man, big time wake up supporter. She said not bad, but too many prospects on that list. Jo, I think we get it. Like, I'm with you. Like it feels, even when we were talking about this, it felt so gross. I'm like, Jay, Arch Manning, are you kidding me? And I know what you're doing. You're just saying that he's the QB1 in 2026. So the QB1 in 2026 is going to be valued. It's a harsh reality to. I just think Dynasty, Jay, is a year-to-year game. I think you have to think ahead, right? You have to think about the future, but it's really just a year-to-year evaluation of your roster and just trying to turn it over. So I get it. And here's the dirtiest part of it. Whoever the QB1 in 2027 is, they're going to be in the top 10, Jay. Like, it's just, for better or freaking worse, they're going to be in the top 10. So one more time, this is JRich's top 10 quarterbacks. He's got Mahomes at 1, Allen at 2, Caleb Williams 3, Drake May 4, and Trevor Lawrence is his top 5 quarterbacks, followed by Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Anthony Richardson, Arch Manning at 9, and Justin Herbert at 10. And people aren't mad. I mean, people are saying, like, it's fine. I saw some people say you get a 7.5. You get a 7 out of 8. So pretty good job, JRich. I think people really enjoyed your list. And here we go. Here goes my top 10 list for me. So on my way from 10 to 1, I've got Drake May at 10, Joe Burrow at 9, the 2025 QB1 Drew Allar at 8, Justin Herbert at 7. I have Josh Allen at 6, Jalen Hurts at 5, Bryce Young 4th, Anthony Richardson at 3, Caleb Williams 2, and Patrick Mahomes at number 1. My top 5, Mahomes, Caleb's, A-Rich, Bryce Young, and Jalen Hurts, Jay. And you said don't bury the lead. Yes, we both have this man, Patrick Mahomes, as QB1 5 years from now. Patrick Mahomes will be going on 32 years old, 32, 33 years old for Patty Mahomes. Probably no Travis Kelce 5 years from now, but he's still going to be Patrick Mahomes. 33-year-old Mahomes, QB1. You know, Caleb Williams just getting that big contract. I think there will be people that gravitate towards the youth, Jay. I think you'll see that in drafts where people are like, I want Caleb over Mahomes, right? What do you think? That's my top 10. Tell me what you like, what you don't like, Jay.
I mean, I think the biggest question for a lot of people will be Bryce Young, right? Obviously, I didn't even have any of the 2022 quarterbacks in my top, or 2023 quarterbacks in my top 10. But you talked about it, and we outlined why you very much believe in Bryce Young. I think the biggest question for a lot of people, and we've seen in the chat like crazy, is where's Lamar? Where's Lamar? Where's Lamar? And I just, again, I think he's a guy who could definitely be in the top 10, but it's just, we've never seen a quarterback like him at the level that he plays at, with the ferocity he plays at week in, week out. And it's important to point out, he's already a guy who's played 12 games each of the last 3 seasons, I believe, or at least each of the last 2 seasons. So when he's 24, 25, he's already not playing full seasons. So when he's 30, 31, if he's just standing in the pocket throwing the ball, he'll be a great quarterback, but is he going to be a fantasy superstar to be a top 5, top 10 guy? And that's the biggest problem with Lamar, and looking to see what he looks like. But yeah, people like your list.
No, I got some stinkers in there too, man. Some people gave me some worse scores than you,
tough,
man.
Though. It's tough, and trying to figure out where they fit in the 10. Like, I think that both of us probably will hit 7 of the 10. But how? But I don't think we will be young guys.
Well, here's the thing. I don't even think we'll hit 7 of the 10, Jay. It's just go back and look. Just go look 5 years ago at what.
2 of those guys are usable. 2 of them have value. It's Mahomes.
It's a crazy
and Watson.
game.
And Watson's a fringe top 10 guy. We didn't talk about Watson at all. And no one's asking questions about Watson. And Watson was QB2 2 years in a row.
Somebody asked in the chat, it was a long time ago, they asked about where's Deshaun Watson at on this list.
I don't think he'd be in the top 10. It's close though. He's another guy who could be, but I don't see it. I just don't see it happening for Watson in 5 years. Like right now he's barely in there. And he could be back, but I don't. It's tough, man. Once these guys fall out of favor, they don't get back. Like, they really don't. And if you look in the table that I put together in the description, you'll see, like, once guys fall out, they're out, and they just never get back in, because there's always an influx of youth every single year. And I think that's where, for us, it's trying to figure out, how does the community in 5 years ultimately value this youth? And it's so difficult to really look at. And we did it for the easiest position. Just wait until we do the running backs.
There's no way. I mean, you pulled the ADP up for running backs. The real question is, 5 years from now, is Bijan even inside the top 5? Is he a top 8 running back 5 years from now? The way that you probably got to rank that is QB1, RB1 from 2027 to be top 3, RB1 from 2026 to be top 5. It's hard, but we wanted to have some fun today because there's not a lot going on. So I hope you all appreciated the conversation, Jay. I had we have not talked about a show like this in a long time. Just the prep just who's going to put what where. This was hard. So hopefully we didn't piss people off too much. It's an interesting thing to think about, and I would love for you in the comments to list your top 10. Give me your top 10 quarterbacks 5 years from now. Give us your top 10 quarterbacks 5 years from now. I want to see you do the exercise and go out there and do it for real. Don't just take the top 10 now and they'll be there. You really think about it.
You can't do that.
If they're if May and Caleb are top 3 picks, they're going to be in there. Whoever the top quarterback is from 2025, they're going to be. It's just what's going to happen. So let us know in the chat, in the comments, who your top 10 would be 5 years from now. But Jay, we got some news, man. We got some news that we got to drop on the show, and this is a good time. We're happy about everything that's going on here at DDJ and. The things that we've been doing this together on the Wake Up Show for almost 2 years now, that we've been waking up at early in the morning and doing this show, Jay. But it's about that time, man. It's about that time.
All good things come to an end.
All good things.
All I ask is when you lay your head on that pillow at night, I gave you everything I had. I gave you everything.
Just know, Jay. Just know that when you lay your head on that pillow at night, I gave you everything I had, baby. I gave you everything I've had, Jay. Just know I gave you everything I had, Jay. But starting this week, JRich, where's it at? Where's the thing at? Where's the graphic? Starting this week, you and I will be separating. You're going to be doing your own show. I'm going to be doing my own show. But luckily for Destination Devi, it's still going to be right here. We ain't going nowhere, but we will have our own shows. Let's get to it, Jay. So starting tomorrow, your new show, Straight to the Bank with JRich, will be kicking off tomorrow. Okay. Tuesday. New show from JRich. And then every Saturday morning, Untitled with me. We'll be dropping a new show on the old podcast feed. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast feed, JRich Straight to the Bank on Tuesdays, and every Saturday, Untitled, just me and you talking about a lot of stuff that has nothing to do with football. It's going to be fun. So yes, we are separating. We're doing our own thing, but we ain't going nowhere. Wake Up is still going to be right here. So when you lay your head on that pillow, Jay, you just know I gave you everything I had, but I got to do this on my own, baby. So I appreciate everybody who was in the chat today, everybody in the building. Thank y'all for rocking with us. Thank y'all for supporting Destination Devi, Scott Connors Show. Dope. Check it out. Yes. Overreaction Pod. Off the Line, 4D Chess, Jordan Backus. Go join up for the squad, patreon.com/allgas. Jay, good show, man. Back to the Future. Go watch it. Top 10 quarterbacks. Let's get eviscerated on YouTube. Appreciate every single person in the building. We love y'all. Let me hit the right outro. We out. Peace. Before y'all close off of the video, I just want to say thank you for checking out the content on Destination Devi. Really appreciate every single view that we get. And the only thing that I ask is that you hit the thumbs up button, like the content, subscribe to the channel, and if you can, comment below for the algorithm. Really helps the channel grow. Now, if you want more exclusive access to me and the entire Destination Devi team, patreon.com/allgas gives you that access. Now, if your money's a little funny, we do have free content for you. Make sure you subscribe to the All Gas newsletter. There's a link in the description of this video below, and subscribe to the Destination Devi podcast radio feed, where we got all types of shows hitting airwaves every single week. Now y'all can get out of here. I appreciate y'all tapping in. It's All Gas all the time. I love y'all. I'm out of this thing. Peace.